Percival lives with his grandfather, Varghese, on a remote island high up in the clouds called God's Finger, where they have no one but each other. Varghese is so jacked it's obvious he has spent all his life kicking ass. He tells Percival that it's his 16th birthday the next day. Although he has become an adult, he still looks like a little twink. The old man tells him stories of the outside world, which is full of adventures, with the floating land of the Wind People, the Lady of the Enchanted Lake who ensnares heroes, and the tangled forest which no one can escape from. But Percival, being the boring boy he is, expresses no interest in adventure. Varghese tells him that he's very different from his father, who couldn't wait to leave the island for adventure when he became an adult. But Percival is secretly interested in adventure and finds the magical world his grandpa describes fascinating. He just wants to be a Sigma male by pretending he doesn't care. One morning, while Varghese is making breakfast, Percival goes off to spend time around the island. On the edge, he sees a flying boat coming up, from which a person clad in a red armor suit emerges. He introduces himself as an old friend of Percival's grandpa, back when Varghese used to be a holy knight. Percival, having no stranger danger, explores his phantom ship while the knight goes to meet Varghese. As soon as he sees him, the knight attacks the old man, causing deep cuts in his body and shattering parts of the landscape by just pointing his fingers at his target. Varghese tries to fight back with his sword but is unable to defend himself. Percival returns and the knight strikes him too. Then he explains to Varghese that a prophecy tells that 4 knights will bring about the downfall of their lord, King Arthur, and that he attacked Varghese and Percival because they have the potential to become those knights before leaving. Varghese reveals to Percival that the knight's name is Ironside and that he's Percival's father. He dies from his wounds and Percival buries him, and then, wearing his grandpa's helmet, he climbs down God's Finger and reaches Britannia. It is revealed that the Holy Knights of the Kingdom of Leon started a coup that became a holy war between the goddess races and the demon races. The world was saved by Meliodas and his companions 16 years ago. As soon as he arrives in Britannia, Percival meets a group of magic trick performers named Cats, Donnie, and Elva, who are impressed with his speed. He asks them about Ironside, but they don't know him, so they take him to the next village with them. They tell him that they want to be holy knights, but their weak magic only allows them to perform cheap tricks. There, a monster wolf is wreaking havoc on the townspeople. Percival, thinking he is some kind of hero, recalls his grandpa's outdated mantra of fighting against oppression and protecting the weak and rushes in to fight the monster. Just as he is about to become dog food, Donnie saves him. As it strikes again, surprisingly little Percival stops his huge paw with one hand, and then he rises and slaps it, striking it down. The townspeople hail Percival as a hero. He asks them all about Ironside, but no one knows of him. A black knight sees all this in his magical crystal and arrives in the village. It turns out he had sent the monster, his familiar, to test Percival's strength. He introduces himself as Peligard and tells Percival that he hails from the same kingdom as Percival's elders. Percival asks him about Ironside and, when he doesn't respond, challenges him to a duel, saying that he will have to tell him all about Ironside if he loses. The knight tells Percival that if he loses, he'll have to become his underling. The knight sweeps the floor with scrawny Percival, but he's impressed that Percival has the strength to push him just a little back. The knight tells him to use magic, but Percival says he has no magic. The knight exclaims Ironside's son can't be a magic-less weakling. As he holds Percival by his face in the air, he suddenly pushes the knight back with a powerful blow, and his hands begin to glow. Percival has activated magic, maybe because sheer embarrassment triggered it. Peligard is excited to see Percival's magic. He summons his magical power and launches a fireball at Percival, but Percival dodges it, yet the fire eventually catches him, burning half of his clothes. He spreads the magic from his fists to his entire body, and unconsciously sends out little but strong goblins, or mini Percivals, that hold the knight's arms down. The knight is impressed with the rate at which the little magic-less loser is learning tricks, but frees himself from the mini Percivals and strikes with a potent blast of fire. Donnie and Percival are overwhelmed by the knight, but a small fox that Pelsivar befriended when he arrived in Britannia comes up to them, and in a totally believable move, it pulls out a small orb in his tail which he uses to teleport Donnie and Percival 30 miles away. The fox, in another believable move, starts talking and introduces himself as Sin, explaining that he's part of an anti-king group that opposes his cruel order of the knights. He also reveals that Percival is one of the 4 knights of the apocalypse who will destroy the world with the calamities of famine, pestilence, war, and death. In the Knights' mysterious council, it is revealed that the 4 knights are young people. Peligard realizes that the last one is Percival. After the meeting, Ironside inquires Pelagard about Percival, and Pelagard explains that he wants to make Percival an ally instead of killing him and wasting rare powers. The fox tells Percival that they can only go to the Knights' Council, Camelot, by first getting to Leones. On the way to Leones, they encounter a giant nun named Dolores, who worships the goddess instead of the earth like other giants. Percival wanders into a place called Echo Gorge where he fights off animals and walking trees. He hears someone's cries and enters a cabin to help. He rescues the victim, a fairy, from the mad herbalist who wants to experiment on it. But the herbalist sedates Percival and kidnaps him. Donnie, Sin, and Dolores are on their way to find him, accompanied by two fairies called Bob and Knob. Bob and Knob believe that the young herbalist called Nassians has turned the trees and animals into monsters, but Dolores believes he's a kind person. In his cabin, Nassians ties Percival up and injects him with a potion, causing his hair to grow even larger. However, he recovers instantly, frees himself, and offers to help Nassians. When Nassians refuses, he strikes him, causing Nassians' special blue potion to fly through the air. Nassians begs him to return the potion and tells him it's vital to saving the gorge, but that he needs to test it on someone before using it. Suddenly, to Nassians' surprise, Percival, having survival instincts, gulps down most of the potion, causing an outburst of energy in him because suspicious drinks always give you superpowers, right? Nassian says that by the symptoms he displayed, the potion seems to be practical. He drinks the little potion that is left in the beaker and falls unconscious. He faintly utters the name Ordo and Percival asks who that is. Bob and Knob explain that Ordo was an herbalist who lived in the gorge a long time ago. He helped the fairies, found Dolores and helped her, and raised Nassians after he found him abandoned in a basket. Suddenly, an air spreads through the forest causing it to completely wither. Nassians produces from his fists more of the potion he drank and spreads it across the forest, and the trees bloom instantly. He explains that his ability allows him to produce any potion he has consumed, and the ability is called poison mixing. When the fairies apologize to Nassians, he tells them they should rather than Percival because he was the one who tested the potion on himself. An ugly monster with 4 arms emerges from an air hole in the gorge and breathes out poisonous air that causes the gorge to die again. Nassians recognizes the monster as Ordo and tries to talk to him, but Ordo seems to have no mind. He seizes Nassians, but Dolores comes to save him. However, he breathes out air on her, inflicting severe injuries. A fairy appears above Ordo, and it's the same one that Percival rescued from Nassians. He seems to be the one who turned Ordo into a monster. He orders Ordo to destroy the gorge to atone for his sins. Percival hugs Nassians like that is the most normal thing to do in life-threatening situations, and tells him they're going to turn Ordo normal again. The evil fairy is shot with an arrow and melts away, and Ordo falls to the ground. Yellow smoke rises from the fairy's body and turns into a holy knight with amber armor named Talisker. Nassians asks him why he's punishing Ordo, and Talisker tells them that if they land a single hit on him, he'll tell them everything. Nassians takes out his knives enchanted with magic, and Talisker is impressed that he can use both shifter and enchanter abilities. Percival attempts to summon his magic, but the only thing his tiny ass manages to accomplish is let out a fart. Talisker summons hail from the sky and rains it down on Nassians, but Percival saves him by pushing him away. With a staff in his hand, Talisker commands Ordo, who slaps Nassian's lame ass away. As Ordo strikes again, Percival decides to talk his way out of it. It works as Ordo's eyes become human-like and tear up. Talisker summons more hail, but Percival jumps up in the air and crushes it all to tiny bits with his strikes. Suddenly, a blast occurs and a yellow magical aura surrounds Percival as his magic activates. Talisker rains more hail, but it's all absorbed by Percival's aura, who throws it back at him. Percival turns his aura into a giant hand that strikes Talisker down. Percival asks him again why he punished Ordo, and he tells Percival that Ordo was punished because he served non-human races such as giants and fairies and wouldn't listen to his warnings, and so he punished him by making him destroy the gorge he loved so much. Talisker summons a combination of lightning and hail to attack Percival. Sin, the fox, tells Percival to imagine a weapon because his magic seems to be bound to his imagination. As the lightning is about to strike, Percival summons a sword and dispels the attack. Then he shoots a powerful attack which defeats Talisker. Dolores wakes up and half her body is blackened. Sin explains that she clad herself in heavy metal to defend against Ordo's attack, and that only giants can use this ability. Sin finds Taliscar's staff and destroys it, causing Ordo to revert to his human form. Sin explains that the staff is powered by chaos, a power the king has given to his knights. Dolores and Nassians are overjoyed to see Ordo back. Later, Nassians comes up to Percival, Sin, and Donnie to tell them that he'll accompany them on their journey to Lyones. Percival resolves to not only fight Ironside but also to defeat the King of Camelot. Ironside visits Cadden, the lord of the city of Sistana, to talk about an artifact he's looking for. It's an ancient relief carved with figures of people offering their prayers, a fragment of the coffin of eternal darkness. Ironside says he needs it to protect the people of Sistana, but Cadden's daughter, Anne, who has the power to see through lies and secrets, is sure that Ironside is lying, as terrorizing peaceful cities seems to be his hobby. Meanwhile, Sim is training Donnie in his levitation magic. Donnie asks Sim why he doesn't use an incantation orb to teleport them to Lyones instantly, and Sim replies that he's out of orbs. The group keeps walking and reaches Sistana, where the mini Percivals find the fragment of the relic buried in the ground like they're hunting for buried treasure at a kindergarten field trip. Anne sees the fragment in Percival's hand and comes to take it. She thinks Percival and his band of clowns are going to give it to Ironside, but Percival offers her the fragment, and she realizes that Percival has no lies or secrets in him. Her father summons her, so she instructs Percival to protect the fragment from Ironside. Anne tries to convince Cadden that Ironside doesn't care for the people of Sistana, but he, in a real Father of the Year moment, slaps her across the face. Later, Ironside shows the people in the town square the other artifact, which is only missing the 5th piece, and informs them that he must get his hands on it to save the world. Sin warns his group, who are watching from a hiding place, that once Ironside obtains the 5th piece, he'll unleash chaos upon them and turn the city into a big human barbecue. He explains that in truth, the artifact was created by the goddess race who sacrificed themselves to seal the demons in it. He realizes that Ironside wants to sacrifice Sistana's people to activate the artifact, and, because she hasn't had enough trauma for one day, interrupts Ironside and tells the people he's telling lies, and he seizes her. Percival runs up to Ironside and rescues Anne. The others run to retrieve the fragment but find out that it's already stolen by Ironside's familiar, Darak, who was disguised as Lord Cadden's maid. Ironside takes the fragment and fits it into the artifact. Then he activates it and dark energies emerge from the ground into the air. He calls them creatures of chaos. Percival and the others are on their way to try to stop him. Ironside commands the creatures of chaos to sacrifice Sistana's people to fuel the hellfire that will destroy the kingdom of Lyones. The creatures turn houses and towers into man-eating monsters who attack the people. Percival and his group reach Ironside and tell him to stop his ritual. Donnie, being a little coward, runs away with his tail between his legs. Anne, Nassians, and Percival attack Ironside, but he overpowers them easily. Percival uses his giant magic hand to strike Ironside, but he dispels the attack. Nassians deals a little damage with his poison, but Ironside shrugs it off like it's bug spray. He inspires great terror in Anne and Nassians to the point that they're unable to move. Finally, he stabs Percival in the chest with his sword, and all of Percival's magic vanishes. Nassians and Anne try to give him a healing potion, but Percival isn't able to swallow it. As they're mourning him, one mini Percival reappears because Hay can't kill the star of the show just yet. Down in the city, Donnie finally finds a scrap of courage as he saves a family, and then he musters his courage to help his companions. When Donnie reaches the square, Percival's magic is amplified several times as his magic pops like cheap fireworks, causing more mini Percivals to pop out and heal Percival and his friends. Ironside is surprised at Percival's strength. Percival rises in the air with broad magic wings, which his friends hang in the air with him. And like the generic cringe protagonist that he is, he declares that his magic is hope, because hope is going to stop the guy who just stabbed you in the chest. Ironside, in a typical edgy villain manner, tells Percival that his magic of hope, which turns other people's emotions into one's strength, is useless. In the city, Ironside's monsters mysteriously begin to be destroyed one after the other. An unknown person throws a knife at Darak, Ironside's familiar, and destroys him as well. Donnie remarks that Sin must have called other holy knights to destroy the monsters. Ironside starts attacking Percival and his team, but Percival flies them around, dodging his attacks. He strikes the artifact, breaking it into 5 pieces. Ironside's mask also breaks due to Percival's strike and his face is revealed. Ironside comments that they've only delayed the ritual a little and raises his hand to attack again. But a golden knight named Mortlatch stops him. He tells Ironside that whoever destroyed his monsters must be one of the legendary heroes of the 7 deadly sins or someone of their caliber. He suggests that Ironside doesn't embarrass himself and withdraw for now, to which Ironside agrees, and they vanish. Anne's father sees that she's alright and he hugs her like he hasn't been a disaster of a dad so far. The group asks Sin whom he called for backup, and he replies that they were his forest buddies. Anne can literally see through his lies, but she doesn't say anything. He sits alone on a cliff, thinking how his father looks exactly like his grandpa, and tears roll down his face. In the mysterious realm of Camelot, where things float outside as gravity is on vacation, Ironside is reporting to the young King Arthur. The king punishes Ironside for failing his mission. During the process, he feels extraordinary pain, but he's also cleared of Nasian's poison. Then Arthur orders him on a new mission to find him a bride, which is just weird. Back in Sistana, Lord Cadden tells the group that his wife knew Ironside because they served the king together. According to his wife, he was an honest and just knight, but Cadden exclaims he is quite the opposite. Anne comes to tell her father that she needs to travel and train to hone her skills to become a holy knight, and Percival invites her to his dysfunctional crew to journey together with them. Anne hugs her father and leaves with the group. Percival, Donnie, Sin and Anne continue their journey to Lyones. After finding out that Percival doesn't about the Holy War and the 7 deadly sins, Anne gives him a crash course that despite being wrongfully accused of an uprising, the Knights of the 7 deadly sins have saved the kingdom of Lyones several times, and they also defeated the Demon King in the Holy War. Anne suggests that they make one person leader so that the group can function smoothly. After ruling the others out, she declares herself the ruler. She could have just said she wanted the position, but the others have no problem with it. They stop at a town named Kant for supplies. Anne goes shopping while the others look for accommodation. Soon they find out that Annie has spent all the money they had on lanterns, blankets, and clothes. Anne takes Percival to a wrestling arena where she bets on him like he is their cash cow. Percival defeats a dozen wrestlers and they return with the money. Meanwhile, Donnie and Nasians enter a pub where they encounter Hauser, a holy knight of Lyones who drinks excessively. Donnie recognizes him and tells Nasians that Hauser is his uncle who in the past trained him and his friend Edlin to become holy knights. Hauser notices that Donnie has a fragment of the ritual artifact and takes it from him and slaps him for being irresponsible. Nasians runs out of the bar. He also takes Anne's bag of money. Nasians attempts to solve the problem by challenging Hauser to a drinking challenge. During the game, Nasians realizes that everything about the town is odd, that everything in the shops seems like stolen items, and that all the people there might be bandits. Percival and Anne are asleep on the floor after taking a drink. The people in the bar surround the group and take out their knives and swords. A man followed by bandits appears behind Hauser, and he realizes that it's Edlin, who he had trained alongside Donnie but has now become the leader of the bandits. Hauser is angry and acts like the moral police that Edlin abandoned his path and became a robber. They do nothing but prey upon the visitors who come to Kant for supplies and accommodation. Hauser fearlessly challenges Edlin, but he falls unconscious from all the alcohol he's consumed, and Percival and Anne are still passed out. With the heroes out for a nap, Nasians attacks with a potion, putting the bandits in the bar to sleep, but Edlin resists it. Using illusion magic, Edlin distracts Nasians and strikes him on the head, knocking him unconscious. Then the bandits lock Hauser, Percival, Anne and Nasians up in a dungeon. They take everything from them except the fragment of the artifact, which they find worthless. Edlin goes outside and, seeing Donnie, invites him to join his group of bandits. Donnie doesn't take him seriously, but Edlin threatens him with his friends' lives. And to show off his villain credentials, Edlin summons a green dragon which is bigger than your mama. He controls the dragon because he has taken its egg and carries it with him. He orders the dragon to go to its den. Back in the dungeon, the barkeep enters the cell and tells the group about Edlin. He explains that Edlin has illusion magic and that he has made a replica of the dragon's egg to control it. He also tells them that Edlin is not as evil as he seems, and the other bandits hate him because he doesn't let them do cruel things to women and children, and ends up freeing every person they imprison. The barkeep tries to convince Hauser that Edlin may need his help. Outside, 3 bandits throw a rock at Edlin's head and take the imitation egg from him, but they drop it and it breaks, causing the dragon to go berserk. The dragon destroys the whole town with its tail and kicks. Back in the dungeon, the group discovers a secret vault behind the wall, where the real dragon egg has hatched and a baby dragon is just chilling there while its parent destroys the world for it. Outside, the dragon has gone full Godzilla shooting fireballs, and Edlin is falling from a great height, but Donnie saves him with levitation. Donnie tells him that he wants to pursue the goal of becoming a holy knight again. Percival arrives with his team, activates his magic aura, absorbs the dragon's fireball, and shoots it back at it. Percival is flying around, dodging the dragon's attacks like he's playing a game of dodgeball. His magic is pretty much useless against the massive creature. Back in the dungeon, Sin explains to Hauser that Donnie isn't the useless brat he thinks he is. He tells Hauser that Donnie didn't steal the fragment of the artifact, but that he was rather protecting it. Hauser becomes convinced that he has misunderstood Donnie. Meanwhile, Nasyans is healing the baby dragon. Hauser asks him to get the alcohol out of his system so he can fight. Outside, the dragon kicks Percival's ass and launches him to the ground. However, it turns out that it was just an illusion from Edlin to trick the dragon. Edlin, Donnie, Percival, and Anne ride on top of Anne's horse, Silva, to get away, but the horse stumbles and falls to the ground, obviously. As the dragon attacks again, Hauser arrives and deflects the attack with his sword. He then creates a cyclone that launches the dragon into the air, and it falls some distance away from them. Donnie and Edlin are overjoyed to witness the undiminished strength of their former master. After all, he's a knight who fought against the demons 16 years ago and survived. When the dragon is defeated, Percival butters Hauser up and tells him he wants to be as strong as him. Nasyans arrives flying on the recovered baby dragon. The baby dragon goes to its mother, who is happy to see it, and leaves. Edlin tries to walk away from them, but Hauser stops him and punches him angrily. But he realizes that he's failed both of his students. He was extremely tough on them and belittled them for their failures, but he couldn't understand their true feelings when they were trying their best. Hauser embraces him and tells him he'll train him again. Later, Hauser crafts Percival a sword to fight with. Away from the others, Sin transforms into his human form and shoots an arrow, like the S-tier archer he is, which reaches Leones to inform Meliodas, king of Leones, that Sin has found the knight who will bring about the end of King Arthur's reign of terror.